and that extends basically from the pharynx to the stomach. What is its size? Its size is about 25 centimeters, about 10 inches in length, right? It starts from the, here you can see, from the pharynx, right? The Fringes muscle starts from, and then it is going to end into the this end of the stomach, upper end of the stomach, that is called the cardiac end of the stomach. So it is extend kya beta, it extends from the cricophringeus, or the lingual part of the pharynx, up to the cardiac end. तो इसका जो एक्सटेंड में कैन यू एनबडी टेल मी कि इसका जो है कहां से कहां तक एक्सटेंड करता है जी, कहां से इसोफेगस स्टार्ट हो रहा है जी? ओके जी,
From the oropharynx, sir.
बेटे नो, इसोफेगस आई टोल्ड यू laryngopharynx का एंड पॉइंट कौन सा है? द लोअर बॉर्डर ऑफ C6 और द लोअर बॉर्डर ऑफ द cricoid cartilage. So it extends from the lower border of C6 or lower end of the cricoid cartilage up to the cardiac end of the stomach. ठीक है, up to the cardiac end of the stomach. Here you can see the cardiac end of the stomach, right? Okay, so इसकी upper extent क्या है जी? It extends from the lower border of C6, or where it is going to enter into the stomach, it is the level of the T11, right? ठीक है, so its lower end, it passes through the diaphragm. You can see there is an opening in the diaphragm that is called the esophageal opening of the diaphragm, and it is going to leave the thorax and enters the abdomen through this opening, and this opening is at the level of T10. And then after entering this diaphragm, passing through this diaphragm, it is having a small pathway about 1 to 1.5 centimeters over here, where it is going to enter into the stomach, and this is at the level of T11. So it is going to enter into the stomach at T11. So इसका extend क्या होगा जी? It extends from the lower border of C6 up to the T11. ठीक है बेटा? Is it clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now the diameter, इसकी length मैंने आपको बता दी. Its length is about 25 centimeters or 10 inches, and its diameter is about 2 centimeters, right? So it has got the two ends. Now it has got an upper end and the lower end. Two ends, okay, right? And these both ends, these are guarded by the sphincters, okay? The narrowing or the sphincters, okay? And these sphincters, they are responsible for what? It's responsible for controlling the contents of esophagus, okay? So that the contents of esophagus should not get into the throat, into the neck. So here you can see there into the pharynx. Here you can see there is a sphincter, that is the Fringes muscle, which is basically the second part or the lowest part of the inferior constrictor muscle. याद है ना आपको Fringes muscle, right? So it is working here as a sphincter in the upper part of the upper end of the esophagus, and in the lower end here, where it is going to enter into the stomach, right? Well, at this entrance of the stomach, it is not the anatomical sphincter. Okay, this is the physiological sphincter. Okay, physiological sphincter से क्या मतलब है? Here there is no structure like the cricopharyngeus over here in the upper end, na? Right? So this area where it is going to enter into the stomach, it is not basically the anatomical sphincter. इसमें कुछ sphincter like properties नहीं होती, यहाँ पे कोई collection smooth muscle नहीं होता जो कि यहाँ constrict करता हो, right? So it is basically a physiological type of the constrictor. ठीक है, right? Okay, so if you have a look over this tube, normally this tube is kept patent, right? It is patent, right? And it is kept flattened anterior posteriorly, and its lumen remains collapsed. It only dilates during the passage of the food, right? Is it clear? That normally,
Yes, sir.
that this tube, it is patent and it keeps collapsed, and it is just going to dilate only when you're going to eat and you are going to pass the food content from here, from the pharynx into the stomach. Okay, now what is its course? Okay, its extent हमने देख लिया था. It extends from it starts from the neck and is going to enter into the abdomen. So we are going to divide it into 3 parts. One, the cervical part, the part of the esophagus which is present, which lies in the neck, and then the thoracic part, the part of the esophagus which extends from the suprasternal notch up to the its opening in the diaphragm, in the thorax, right? And of course, the third one is the abdominal part, the smallest part of the esophagus, which is before it, after entering into the diaphragm and before passing from the diaphragm and entering into the stomach. This smaller part, this is called what? This is the abdominal part. So we are going to divide the esophagus into the cervical part here above the suprasternal notch, and then the thoracic part from the suprasternal notch up to the opening the diaphragm, and then the abdominal part from the opening in the diaphragm up to the entrance into the upper end of the stomach. Is it clear, Ji? So we have got the three parts. यहाँ तक कोई problem तो नहीं है बच्चे? Okay.
No, sir.
Now we'll talk about the first part, and that is the cervical part, the part which lies in the neck. So this part extends from, हाँ जी, ऊपर से इसकी extension कहाँ से start होगी जी? मैंने भी बताया थोड़ी देर पहले आपको. Yes. So it starts
Lower
from
border
the
of C.
lower border of the C6 or the lower border of the cricoid cartilage, right? It extends from the lower border of C6 up to the suprasternal notch. A suprasternal notch, it lies at the level of about T2 or T3. Okay? So C6 से लेके T2 तक. So its total length it is about 5 to 6 centimeters in length, right? Okay. Now the junction point of the esophagus with the cricofringeus muscle or the laryngopharynx, it is the narrowest part of the gastrointestinal tract, right? मैंने आपको बताया कि जो आपका esophagus है, इसका जो diameter that is about 2 centimeter, right? So it is 2 centimeter, and the narrowest part is the one where there is a junction between the esophagus and the cricofringeus muscle. That is about 1.5 centimeters, 1.4 to 1.5 centimeters, right? So the narrowest part of the GAT is a viva question. That is which one is the narrowest part of the GAT? पूरी gastrointestinal tube का जो narrowest part है, that is this pharyngoesophageal junction. ठीक है? That is about 1.4 to 1.5 centimeters, right? So it extends from this narrowest part up to the suprasternal notch, and the suprasternal notch lies at the level of T2 or T3, right? So, well, so from the C6 level, it runs, downwards between the trachea. Here you can see it runs downwards between the trachea and the vertebral column. यहाँ से यहाँ तक की extent, right? Here you can see. You can see C6 से यहाँ start हो रहा है, going up to the T2 का ये border है, T2 or T3 इस level तक, right? यहाँ तक it is a cervical part of the esophagus, right? So it runs downwards between the trachea and the vertebral column and reaches at the root of the neck or up to the level of the suprasternal notch. ठीक है? ये extent है बेटा. Now, after reaching over here, it will leave the cervical region and it will enter the thorax. और जब thorax में enter होगा तो कहाँ enter होगा जी? When esophagus will leave the cervical region, it will enter the which part of the thorax? Suprasternal
ये
notch.
suprasternal notch.
जी, suprasternal notch से लेके और mandibular sternum तक कौन सा mediastinum होता है जी? It will enter into the superior mediastinum. ठीक है? भूल गए? What is the mediastinum?
सर mediastinum वो वाले parts होते हैं ना जिसमें आपके different structures होते हैं thorax के. Like anatomical इसकी importance होती है जब हमने surgery करनी होती है.
What is the mediastinum? What is the definition? You are not a layman. You are talking like a layman. हाँ जी.
होता है सर.
स्पेस होती है सर thorax
Whether
में.
it is space between left and right lungs.
Oh. You will come tomorrow with the,
So
fully
space
prepared.
between the manubria sterni and vertebral column.
fully prepared with the mediastinum. I will ask the question by tomorrow in the next class. Okay. You must be knowing all these things. Okay. So now what are the relations in the neck, G? So all over here you can see, I told you this part lies where this part, the cervical part, इसके anterior relations में you can see ये क्या है जी? Anterior, this is an lateral view. This is an esophagus lying between the trachea and the vertebral column. So of course anteriorly इसके क्या पड़ा हुआ है? Trachea पड़ा हुआ है और posteriorly क्या पड़ा हुआ है जी? Vertebral column पड़ा. Is it clear? You can see. But anteriorly there are two more structures. I'll just show you now. Here you can see this is an esophagus. The trachea has been removed, and you can see the recurrent laryngeal nerves over here. So anteriorly इसके जो है left and right recurrent laryngeal nerve है और उसके आगे ये आपका trachea पड़ा, right? And the posteriorly इसके क्या होगा जी? Posteriorly क्या पड़ा होता है ये?
सर वर्टिब्रा होगा
Vertebral column. और vertebral column से पहले यहाँ पे एक fascia पड़ा होता है. That is called as a prevertebral fascia, right? So two structures anteriorly in the region of the neck, the trachea or trachea और उसके दरम्यान में there are the two nerves which are traveling upwards. These are the left and right recurrent laryngeal nerves, and posteriorly it is related to the vertebral column, and before the vertebral column there is a fascia over here. This is called as a prevertebral fascia, right? और उसके only both sides of this one. You can see this gland over here, which is just not only including the trachea in front, from the front on the both sides. You can see the right and left lobe of thyroid gland, which is extending up to the posterior, right? So on the both sides of the esophagus, there is also these right and left lobes of the thyroid gland, right? And on the left side here, you can see in the upper part here, yes, on the left side, you can see this duct over there. This is called as a thoracic duct. Thoracic duct lies over here. Okay, ji? Just show you somewhere. Here you can see this one. This is an esophagus, right? And you can see the thoracic duct in close relation with the left side of the esophagus. Is it clear, ji? Problem?
No, sir.
There is an option. Abu Huraira. Narrowest part of gastrointestinal tract, I told you that is a Fringo-esophageal junction. But जहाँ से esophagus start हो रहा है pharynx से, that point is called as that point is the narrowest part. Okay, and I told you that is about 1.4 to 1.5 centimeter diameter. So the relations of the cervical aortic problem, you can see anteriorly we have got the trachea और इसके दरमियान में we have got the right and left recurrent laryngeal nerve. Posteriorly there is a vertebral column with this prevertebral fascia in front, and on the left, on both sides, the both lobes in the upper part, the both lobes of the right and left lobes are thyroid gland, and on the left side predominantly where you can see the thoracic duct over there. Is it clear? Okay, ji. Now the thoracic part, ji. Thoracic part. Okay, जी thoracic part कहाँ से कहाँ तक extend करेगा जी? मैंने आपको बताया था जी. Thoracic part will extend from
T6 till T2.
thoracic part extends from the suprasternal notch here. This is unique, right?
Oh.
T3, ठीक है? T3 के इस level से it starts from here, and it is going to enter up to the opening of the diaphragm, and this is the level of T10 vertebra, right? So the thoracic part, it extends from the suprasternal notch, ठीक है जी? Suprasternal notch से लेके, ठीक है? Suprasternal notch से लेके, it is going to extend downwards up to the level of the T10, opening of the esophageal opening of the diaphragm, right? And it is about 17 to 18 centimeters in length. ठीक है? कितने centimeter होता है? It is about 17 to 18 centimeter. And when it will enter into, while passing behind the suprasternal notch, when it is going to enter into the thorax, it will first pass from the superior mediastinum, right? Superior mediastinum extends from suprasternal notch up to the, ये क्या जी?
Sternal angle.
Up to sternal angle, right? So suprasternal notch से लेके ये sternal angle तक होता है, angle of Louis, right? it is also called as the manubriosternal joint. Is it or not? Right? So superior mediastinum yahan se yahan tak hai, or and after passing from here, passing down from here, it is going to enter into the posterior mediastinum. ठीक है ना? Posterior mediastinum is a part of the inferior mediastinum. Inferior mediastinum के 3 part होते हैं जी, anterior mediastinum, middle mediastinum and the posterior mediastinum. अभी याद आया आपको mediastinum जी? Right?
Yes.
So after entering into the thorax, first it passes through the superior mediastinum and then it will enter into the posterior mediastinum. Is it clear? Okay.
सर ये दोबारा समझा दें क्या?
Okay, I just told you. If you remember the mediastinum, फिर आपको पता होना चाहिए कि when it will enter the thorax, so it will pass from the sternal angle down to the whole of the thorax, right? Thorax we are going to divide into the 2 parts. The upper part between the sternal notch and the sternal angle. This part is called as the superior mediastinum, right? Superior mediastinum से लेके the sternal notch से sternal angle से लेके नीचे तक after diaphragm, it will run into the posterior mediastinum. ठीक है? I don't have the time कि आपको posterior mediastinum की details बताऊं. You must be remembering it. Okay, so when it will enter into the thorax, show you now. Here you can see when it will enter the thorax while passing by passing behind the sternal notch, it will run downwards a bit downwards and to the left. ठीक है? यहाँ पे इसका थोड़ा सा left lateral curvature होता है, right? It will run downwards and to the left through the superior mediastinum, and then it will pass through the posterior mediastinum, and at the level over here, at this level, that is the ये कौन सा level था जी? मैंने आपको बताया था again sternal angle का ये level है ना बच्चे. क्या हो गया आप लोगों को? Sternal angle का ये level, और यहाँ से you can see the arch of aorta, right here. So this arch of aorta is going to push this esophagus again to the midline. ये यहाँ से इस तरह laterally turn करेगा, left को आएगा, it comes to the left, and then it is again pushed by the arch of aorta towards the midline, and it comes to lie in the middle of the thorax, right? Is it clear? And when it will reach near the this esophageal opening, right, it will turn a bit left, right, and then it will pass to the left crus of the diaphragm. Here you can see this one. Diaphragm याद है आपको जी? The right crus of diaphragm here, and this is the left crus of diaphragm. So this opening is basically, it lies where? It lies in the left crus of diaphragm, right? So when it runs downwards, when it will enter the thorax, it runs downwards into the left, and then at the sternal angle, it is being pushed by the arch of aorta to the middle, and then it will run downwards in the midline, right? And when it will reach close to this esophageal opening, it will turn a little, a bit left from here, and it will leave the thorax by passing to the left crus of the diaphragm. That through this opening is called as a esophageal opening, right? And then it will enter into the abdominal region. And when it will enter into the abdominal region, here you can see these muscle fibers forming a sling around the esophagus. These are the fibers of the right crus of the diaphragm, right? So the right crus of diaphragm here, they're going to make a sling in this region, and then it is just, going to hold that region. And this sling fibers basically, right, these are also working as a part of the physiological sphincter for the gastroesophageal opening, right? मैंने आपको बताया था कि ये physiological है. Physiological क्या है? There are certain factors. For example, these sling-like fibers, they're making a sling around it, and when there is a raised in the intra-abdominal pressure, this area, it is collapsed. This part of the esophagus is collapsed along this wall, and it is closed. Is it clear, beta? Right? And why it is there? Because it prevents the regurgitation of the contents of stomach into the esophagus. Clear जी? इसके पाथ में कोई प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बच्चे?
No, sir.
Right. So now we'll talk about its relations जी. If you talk about its relations, so anterior इसके फिर क्या होगा जी? In the upper part, it is related to the trachea. Okay? In this upper part, right? It is related to the trachea, and here you can see the recrolaryngeal nerve which passes from here. Let me just show you somewhere else. You can see the vagus nerve coming downward is going to give the left recrolaryngeal nerve, which makes a loop around the arch of the aorta, and then it runs upwards, right here on the anterior surface of this esophagus. You can see there, right? So in the thoracic part, it is related to first number one, this trachea, and after the trachea, you can see the nerve running parallel to this one on the anterior surface of the esophagus. In the thoracic part, there is a left recrolaryngeal nerve. And then you can see this left bronchus coming down over here and is going to, overlap the esophagus in this region, right? So the left principal bronchus, it crosses the esophagus anteriorly, right? Okay, just show somewhere else also. Here you can see in this picture, esophagus coming downwards over here, and here you can see here the left bronchus, it is just going to cross this esophagus anteriorly, right? And here you can see the pericardium enclosing the heart. So anteriorly, from upside down, we have got the trachea, left recrolaryngeal nerve, then left bronchus, left principal bronchus, right? And then the pericardium, which separates this esophagus from the. Which part of the heart lies? Ji? ये हमने पढ़ा था.
Left atrium.
Left atrium. So it is in relation to the left atrium, right? So the pericardium separating the esophagus from the left atrium. So these are these anterior relations, right? Now the posterior relations, you can see posterior relations में क्या आ रहा है जी? Of course, these are bodies of the thoracic vertebrae, right? Bodies of thoracic vertebrae, and here you can see the descending thoracic aorta also in its posterior relations, right? Ji? Okay. Now, okay, I'm talking about the posterior relations till now. Posterior relation, you can see the vertebral column here, then some part of the thoracic aorta, descending thoracic aorta over there, and then you see this descending thoracic aorta is giving the intercostal arteries. So the right posterior intercostal artery is getting origin from this aorta. They passes behind, posterior to the, esophagus and entering into the, right thoracic wall. So in the posterior relations, I'm going to repeat it again. The thoracic vertebrae with the vertebral fascia, prevertebral fascia. Then we have got this one, the thoracic aorta, and then the right posterior intercostal arteries, which are getting origin from the descending thoracic aorta. Is it clear, Ji? Which, and one more thing is there. I'll just show you. Here you can see the thoracic duct over here, right? This thoracic duct, it comes to lie on the, I told you, it is present on the left part of the cervical part, left side of the cervical part. So यहाँ तक कैसे पहुंचती है? It basically comes from, I'll show you. You see? Initially, it lies on the right side of the, lower part of esophagus, and then it will cross the esophagus from its posterior surface and come to lie on the left side here, like this, right? So in the posterior relation, about in the middle, right, just against the root of the lung, it passes behind the esophagus and comes to the left side. So when we talk about the posterior relation, so the structures we are coming across, of course, we have got the vertebral column over there. Then we have got the fascia over there, and then this part of the descending thoracic aorta, and then these right posterior intercostal arteries, and then the thoracic duct, which is just going to pass from the right to the left side by passing posterior or behind the esophagus, right? So in the posterior relations, we have got the descending thoracic aorta, body of the thoracic wall, then the right posterior intercostal arteries and the thoracic duct. प्रॉब्लम तो नहीं है बच्चे यहाँ तक?
No, sir.
रिलेशंस में कोई प्रॉब्लम है तो बच्चे लेट मी नो. ओके, नाउ ऑन द राइट साइड, क्या क्या पड़ा हुआ जी? Esophagus के राइट साइड पे भी एक got the right lung and the pleura.
Esophagus.
Right lung and the right pleura. We have got the azygous vein and we have got the right vagus nerve. यहाँ से देखिए right vagus nerve आ रही है. It's going to it will pass by this root of the lung and then it will be running on the right side. यहाँ तक, right? So right vagus nerve is present over here, right? So we have got the right lung and the right pleura, azygous vein and the right vagus nerve. ठीक है जी? We will talk about the left side. The left side again we have got the, you can see this artery over here. So left side पे क्या क्या होगा जी? Again दो structures तो common होंगे ना जी. कौन कौन से जी? Left lung and left pleura, right? उसके बाद we have got the, और क्या है जी?
Left subclavian.
Here you can see the left subclavian artery coming. मैं इसकी आपको दूसरी जगह से दिखाता हूँ. I have another picture. I just showed you over there. Here you can see the left subclavian artery, right? And then aortic arch, of course. ये देखें, it is in the left, left side posterior relations में आ रही है, right? So we have got the left lung and left pleura, this aortic arch, and then the left subclavian artery. And I told you one more thing, the structure which passes from the right to left, कौन सा था जी? अभी दिखाया था मैंने अभी आपको. Thoracic duct, right? So we have got the thoracic duct over here on the its left relations. Here you can see thoracic duct passing over. ठीक है जी, क्रॉस कर रही है यहाँ से, posteriorly क्रॉस कर रही है, इसके ट्राई होगा. That's it. Okay. और इसके साथ we have got another nerve over here. कौन सी nerve होगी यहाँ पे? The nerve which is going to make a loop over here. Aortic arch को loop करेगी और it will be sent upwards. That is the left recurrent laryngeal nerve, right? So we have got the left subclavian artery, जी, left subclavian artery. Then we have got the aortic arch. Then we have got the thoracic duct over here. You can see. Then the left recurrent laryngeal nerve, okay, and left lung and the left pleura. So these are the left relations of the thoracic part of the esophagus. Problem तो नहीं है जी? Okay. Just show you one more thing. Both sides where you can see the right vagus and the left vagus coming down over here, and they are going to make a plexus in front of, you see, this is carina, that is the bifurcation of the trachea. They're going to make the plexus over here, and after making the pulmonary plexus they will leave again, and then they will come to lie on the both sides of the esophagus, and here they're going to make another network that is named as the esophageal plexus, right? So the vagi along with the sympathetic nerve, they are going to form the esophageal plexus around the esophagus over here. You can see this one, and you can see the left vagus nerve is coming down over here, the laterals on the left side, and in the lower part, it comes to lie on the anterior surface of the anterior aspect of the thoracic part of the esophagus. And whereas the right vagus, where it will come over here and it will go towards the posterior aspect of the esophagus. Is it clear, ji? Because left vagus, it's coming from the left side now, then it will come to lie on the anterior aspect, making a plexus over here, and then it come to lie on the anterior aspect, and then it will run on the anterior surface, the lower part of the esophagus. Whereas the right vagus nerve, it will cross and it will go to the posterior surface of the esophagus. Is it clear, ji? And in the same condition, these both vagal trunks, they are going to leave the thorax and enter into the abdominal region on the anterior and the posterior surfaces of the esophagus respectively. Is it clear? Okay, now we'll talk about the abdominal part, right? Abdominal part is the part of the esophagus which extends from the esophageal opening upwards, opening into the cardiac end of the, stomach. This end, the upper end of the stomach, is also called the cardiac end of the stomach. Is it clear? So it is about 1.5 to 2 centimeters in length, right? Okay, and how it will enter into the abdomen, जी मैंने आपको बताया था. How it will enter into the abdomen? It passes through which crus of diaphragm?
Right.
Left.
It will pass from the. हाँ जी. लोग कैसे हैं यार? It's going to
Right
pass through this right left crus of diaphragm. ये left crus से pass करता है, and you can see the right crus of diaphragm. It is going to make a sling around it, which is going to give it a symmetric shape. Here you can see this one. So these are the fibers of right crus of diaphragm which are making sling around the esophagus, right? Well, it passes through the left crus of diaphragm, right? Okay, ji. Now it after entering into the abdominal region, it runs downwards and to the left, right? It runs downwards and to the left. Okay, and from where in front of the यहाँ पे front में क्या हो रहा? I told you the left crus of diaphragm over here. ठीक है? यहाँ पे enter होने के बाद it is just going to lie on the inferior surface in close relation with the liver. Here you can see this. After entering into the passing through the diaphragm, it lies where? It lies just on the inferior surface of the left. This is the left lobe of the liver, right? So it is lying in under the inferior surface of the left lobe of the liver, right? And then it will reach downwards, and then it will turn sharply and is going to enter into the cardiac end of the stomach. And this is at the level of the T11. Is it clear?
Yes.
And इसका जो point of entry and in the stomach, but it is about 2.5 centimeter left to the median plane. If you draw a median plane over here in the midline, so from the median plane, it is about 2.5 centimeter, the entry point of the esophagus into the stomach at the cardiac. Is it clear? So I repeat it again. It runs downwards after entering by passing through the esophageal opening, right? It runs downwards and to the left and passes through, and then it comes to lie on the inferior surface of the, in relation with the inferior surface of the left lobe of the liver. Then it turns sharply and is going to enter into the cardiac end of the stomach, right? At the level of the T11. Okay, and if you would mark it entrance from the esophagus into the abdomen, into the stomach, that is about 2.5 centimeter from the midline, from the sagittal section, from the median plane. Okay, and here you can see its right border coming down over here. The right border is going to be continuous with the lesser curvature of the stomach. You see this curve of the stomach, this is called the lesser curvature of the stomach. Whereas its left border is going to continuous with the, this is the fundus, this convex dome of the stomach, this is called as the fundus. So it is going to be continuous with the fundus of the stomach, right? And at this, how it is going to continue by a notch that is called as the cardiac notch. This is a cardiac notch. This obtuse angle between the esophagus and the fundus of the stomach, this angle that is called as a cardiac notch. Okay, ji? Is it clear, beta? So when this lower part of the esophagus, after entering through the esophageal opening, it runs downwards and to the left under the inferior surface of the left lobe of the liver, and it is going to enter into the cardiac end of the stomach. Its right border, it is going to continuous with the lesser curvature stomach, and the left border, it is going to be continuous with the fundus of stomach, and they are separated by this notch, and this notch is named as the cardiac notch of the stomach. Problem तो नहीं है बच्चे, right? No. तो इसके रिलेशंस क्या क्या होंगे जी? एंटीरियर रिलेशन में दिस इज अ पार्ट ना, तो इसके एंटीरियर रिलेशन में दो चीजें पढ़ी, कौन कौन सी पढ़ी होंगी जी? एक तो आपको ये नजर आ रही है ना, posterior surface of the left lobe of the liver, जो इसको ये you see we have just lifted up, right? So anterior इसके क्या पढ़ा हुआ है? Inferior surface of the left lobe of the liver, right? और यहाँ पे मैंने अभी बताया था एक नर्व इसके साथ एंटर हो रही है, कौन सी नर्व एंटर होती है यहाँ से बेटा?
राइट वेगस।
कौन सी वेगस नर्व जी?
Right vagus.
Right vagus or left vagus? I told you the left vagus will come over here from the left side, and then it is going to come to lie, it comes to lie on the anterior surface of the esophagus, and as such, it is going to enter into the abdomen by passing through the esophageal opening. So the left vagus nerve, right? And at that time, it is also named the left vagal trunk, right? So it